everyone, welcome to Agentuity demo day for week 17. You might notice that we've got quite a few new faces here working with some additional folks. We've got Jason and Dylan and Nicholas joining us this week. Also have a couple of people out this week, various reasons, but a lot of us just gearing up, getting ready to head up to San Francisco next week for the AI.Engineer World Fair. So hope to see some of you all there. If you are, please stop by our booth. We'd love to talk to you, hear about what you're building or what you want to go build, and see what we can do to help you out. So I'm going to kick us off this week. And so I'll go ahead and share my entire screen this time. This is a nice week for me. I haven't been able to do a lot of demos lately because I've been working on things that we sort of wanted to hold back until we launched it and didn't want to show it off too early. And so if you all saw the tweet that went out today, we've got a new website up and running now. Been working on this for quite a while, but this is the website over here on the left. Just sort of a new style, trying to add a bit more clarity about what it is exactly we do and what our product offers, and how it makes your life easier. Gone through and tried to make things a bit more clear as well. So we've got some new example code up here. You can sort of switch between Vercel and Crew and LangChain, LangGraph, Llama. And like it's all the same code now, where it wasn't before. So that you can sort of compare apples to apples and see really quick what it looks like to use each of these different frameworks. Some of the stuff's the same. You probably recognize a lot of this higher level sort of content from the current website. But one thing I want to talk about is this animation stuff, which I'll get to in a second. But another cool thing that we've added is we've got these hotkeys now. So if you press the B key or the D or the A key, you can actually just jump right to the latest blog post or the docs or the application. So I think that's a pretty cool little thing. I think it was Rick's idea to integrate that. So thank you, Rick, for that. But the cool thing I want to show off is these ASCII animations that we've got down here for some of the features that we have in our product. It's really interesting trying to use text. This is all actual text here that is being animated. Normally, if you use something like Framer Motion or React Motion as it's called now, it's pretty easy to like take divs and move them around and even animate like borders and drop shadows and everything else along. But obviously you can't do that with text. So I just want to kind of go over two different ways that I've done this. The first one here is the IO stuff. It's kind of cool and interesting, and if you're going to ASCII animation, maybe it's interesting to you. So basically, we sit here and we sort of define what each of the rows looks like, and we've sort of got like a placeholder for where the image is absolutely positioned. And then what we're doing is we're actually, for this first path, the webhook path, we're basically just giving it a mapping of for each frame. Highlight, row 0, column 10, which would be like this item right here, right? And we're just basically looping over those every, however many milliseconds and going through and giving them a color effectively. So pretty interesting way of doing it, but it wasn't really going to work necessarily for this other one, the way I sort of originally had it. So ended up going down a different path with this one, which is, again, we're defining the frames. But then we have this color mapping. So we actually have no color or white color or cyan color. And we have like this color mapping on top of the frame mapping. And so all we're doing is we're basically going through and changing each of these sort of mathematically, determining which one with a random and everything else. And then all we're doing is we're like flipping the 0 to a 1. And that turns it cyan, and we loop through that when we build out the UI and can use a color. So pretty cool. Just wanted to show that off real quick. And that's it for me for this week. Hopefully you all enjoy the new website. Let me know if you found anything wrong with it. And with that, over to Dylan.
Hey guys, good to be here. So today I'm going to kind of walk through what I did this week, and that involves mostly I took this week and I built and integrated 3 functional Agno AI agents, and I used the Agentuity Python runtime and then the OpenAI Python SDK, which is GPT-4o. And as you can see here, we have the three agents here. So one of them, the first one would be a finance agent. And basically how I set it up, what it does is kind of provides full financial analysis on any public company. So whether it's stock data, fundamentals, analyst reviews, or anything like that, it will give it to you. So the first function, the first file, the agent.py, there's the async entry point. It also builds the GPT-4o prompt and then returns that formatted output. And then this query parser file uses GPT-4o to extract the tickers and then also the financial intent from the user input. So whatever they want to see about that specific company, that's what this is responsible for. And then finally, with the Y Finance Tools file, it basically uses the Yahoo Finance library to fetch current and up-to-date stock and financial metrics. And that's the finance agent. And then with the next one, which is the recipe agent, basically this creates a recipe based on whatever ingredients or preferences the user provides, and then returns a full recipe. And so the first file, agent.py, is the ASIC handler for requests, and then it also deals with error handling and responses. And then the recipe agent is taken directly from Agno, and it uses Exitools, which is a AI-powered search tool, and also GPT-4o to search and generate those structured recipes. And that's recipe agent. And then with YouTube agent, the final one, which takes a YouTube link and then a user input and analyzes the content, summarizes the transcript, metadata, and then also provides commentary. So the first function, agent.py, handles the full request cycle, including the OpenAI calls and response generation. And then the second one, YouTube agent.py, kind of processes the link, fetches the transcript and metadata using the YouTube transcript API, and then constructs the GPT-4o prompt for analysis for the original file agent.py. And yeah, I can show you a quick demo of how this one works.
Some really cool agents.
And so yeah, you can see here, so I already ran it. So for this specific example, the prompt was create a study guide with timestamps for this math lecture. So this link led to an algebra introduction, just a basic math video by the organic chemistry tutor. And you can see it gives the video type, content structure, and then what I asked for, actual timestamps. So it gives the timestamps with detailed summaries. So first one is introduction to like terms, polynomials, foiling, exponents, and then it kind of breaks it down as each of the kind of timestamps are. And yeah, and it kind of gives a full rundown on that sense. So that's what I was up to this week. And
great for college.
Yeah, very cool. I got a question. Does the stock one just always tell you to go buy NVIDIA?
Most of the time, every time I test it with NVIDIA, it always says buy, and every analyst.
It always says buy, especially after yesterday.
Works great. Cool.
Great. And Nicholas?
All right. Yeah, so over the past 2 weeks, actually, I have worked on some Devin playbooks. So the goal of this was to try to have Devin use the Agentuity CLI and be able to test agents itself. So this first one, the goal is for it to import a project and then run the agent and test it using dev mode. So some things that I had to work around were having it, pull the project from GitHub and then import it into its own account. Then it would have to run the server and then run the test that the user specifies. So in this example, I just made a very simple factorial agent. It just returns the factorial of a number. So at first it authenticates. It makes sure that it's logged in. And then after that, it imports the project. I've given it like the specific commands it needs to use. And then to test the agent, it uses CURL to send post requests to the agent once the dev server is up and running. So in this case, it did it without any intervention, which was very cool. So it was able to pull the code and and run it, and then it used the tests. And at the end, it actually was able to give a report of what it did at each step. So I'm sure there are probably a lot of uses for this in the future. So it was cool. A lot of trial and error. But then the next one was to test the CLI itself. So with this, it will build the most recent version and then test it. In order for it to do this, I gave it a test repository. So there's a Bun project, Node project, and Python project. So it can use any of those to test the commands that require you be inside an Agentuity project. In this case, I just had to add a little print statement before the API key list command. But you can see that in this result, it added it, and then it was able to create a pull request as well. So we can use this to have it like further improve its knowledge of our own tools, and so to be pretty useful. And then the last thing I want to talk about is an example agent that is a hiring agent. So the idea behind this one is that instead of applying to a person or talking to a hiring manager, you would build an agent and it would converse with a hiring agent. And that agent, so your agents would kind of talk about you and determine, your fit that way. So it's still in progress right now, but basically it works. There's a back and forth interaction. The hiring manager will validate that the client or the applicant is registered, that it's expecting an interview. And then it does, right now it just does a simple little back and forth. And I've designed an applicant as well that will just send messages until the hiring manager tells it that the conversation is over, and then it will no longer accept any further messages. So there's a little log. It's a very simple message, but this is the log that the hiring manager keeps of all interactions, and then at the end it'll write it. So maybe the actual hiring manager could review it and see. Yeah, but that's what I've been working on, and I'm going to pass it over to Jason.
That's awesome.
All right, very cool. For me, I am working on this proof of concept for evaluation system, or evals. What are evals? Evals are a way for you to have confidence in the way that your production AI apps are performing. So what you do is you create a data set. This is a contrived example data set with a query and response pair. So the LLM will run the query, and then we will test if the query that is the response from the LLM matches the expected response. But because LLMs don't return deterministic kind of binary answers, we have to use another agent as a judge to determine whether the generated agent and the generated response and the expected response kind of match. So that's what this is. This is kind of a demo here. So you can create a new evaluation. You can use an existing data set, financial modeling, or upload a new one. You can use a bunch of different models, and we'll add more if we end up iterating more on this, and then a judge model as well, right? So you can save and edit your prompt so that you can make sure that that's the combination of the thing that is going to make the most impact, right? The prompt plus the model. And then we'll run that through. There's a suite of 4 agents saving everything to the Agentuity KV store so that we can pull. So one agent from the other can kind of pull the eval set as it goes through. And it'll generate, this is actually pulling from the KV store live. This is kind of the back end. And it'll pull the results, right? So this is 10 cases with a 92% score or 92% similarity rate. We're calling high similarity over an 80%. And what's really happening is we have an LLM as a judge that's basically just prompted to compare those two values and give it a score from 0 to 100. And this is the financial modeling example. And you can see this one got a 100% score because we expected a 40%. And this was the model's response with this whole long thing, but coming to the conclusion that it's 40%. And then it's kind of cool. You can also read the judge's reasoning for giving the answer. So just saying that it's the same. Another example is this one, which is only 60%. So you can see that this response was just a few percentage points off, and the judge says as much. So kind of cool. Still very much a work in progress, but this is the proof of concept, and yeah, that's something I've been working on for the last couple of days. So that is it for me, and I'll pass it to Robin.
Thanks, Jason. So I've been working on our infrastructure, fixing little stuff, but that's super boring to demo. You can click around the app if it works. That's my demo. Let me go ahead and share my screen. This is an agent that I've been working on. It's called the FOMO agent. So a couple of us are expecting babies. Not going to name names, by the way. And so I wanted to make, there's always these things like, oh, you could just dump your Slack into an LLM and then it'll, tell you stuff. I think I demoed like a prototype of this a couple weeks ago.
We're only seeing your YouTube.
Yeah. All right, you see this now? Sorry about that.
My device on it.
Sorry. Oh, sorry about that. Get this out of here. There we go. So this FOMO agent has the ability to query a Slack. So here, I'll go ahead and share it. So let's say I want to, I'm out because I'm dealing with the baby, but I want to know what's all the cool stuff going on in AI right now. So there's this expert prompt I came up with to figure out what's going on in AI. Post from Rick in the last few days in Random and Buzz. So go ahead and run this. And so this is going to go out. I need to work on the state here handling. I have some streaming stuff working real quick. Running this query. Under the hood, it's using Anthropic to build out a query. And then it'll go and summarize that using DeepSeek. Here we go. So it's thinking, this is coming out of, there we go. Look at that. Cool stuff, huh? So now here's all the things that Rick thought was important to share with all of us. And some silly stuff too. So that's it. Need some more improvement, but we're working there. We're getting there. That's it.
Cool. I
Passing
am
to
up
Kevin.
next.
Sorry.
Yep. The first thing I want to share this week is more of a continuation on what we shared last week, actually, which is the deploy now button. We just didn't take you through the whole state or the whole flow. So I just wanted to share what it's like to complete the flow. I have a test app here. It's just a fork of what we did for React Miami. And I'm just going to clone it real quick. So I'm just going to do my awesome repo. See if this works. Everything's local right now. Things are looking good. So it looks like it's cloning. All right, this might take a little bit. But the next step, this part you might have seen a little bit of last week. We're going to require that you configure all of the integrations for all of the agents in the project. So I'm just going to go through one by one. I'm going to add a new cron job and maybe make it trigger every 12 hours. And for now, I'm just going to keep things disabled. And it'll tell you, too, what the integration is for. It's cron job for the test2 agent. Excuse the bad names. This is just test data for local purposes. And I'm going to also add an API and an inbound webhook so I can trigger this agent. And then when everything is set, you'll see that a deploy button is now enabled. And you can click that. And this is the part where we start to do all the packaging and deploy your new agents to production. Because the actual repo was already created in the prior step. So this is the done step. Your new project's ready. You can either go through a project manually, or we also have a redirect that's going to bring you there in about 5 seconds. And you'll see here in your new project that we actually do have a completed deployment that just got kicked off. So yep, that's all working now. And yes, please start testing the deploy now button. We have it in a bunch of our example repos. Yeah, give it a shot. The next thing I want to show is, or I just want to quickly talk about a bug that Matt and I fixed throughout the week. It was something that was really ticking me off when I first started using the app, but you might have noticed that there was like a dead zone in some of these clickable rows.
usually in the single line cells where above and below it, you just couldn't click the row. That's fixed now. Thank you, Matt. But I also want to share an improvement for the sessions section of the web app. So now if I kick off, let me just kick off a session real quick so I can talk through this. You may have noticed that when you have a pending session, oh, and there's a new little animation on the refresh button because it wasn't clear that it did anything sometimes. But now when you have a pending session or something that just recently completed, we might not have all the data to show in this state yet. That one actually completed very fast. I don't know why. Let me try this again. Or maybe I have something fudged in my local. Okay, so when we can tell that there's data that isn't quite done being processed yet, we have this new state where you can continue to refresh it. And as we start getting data from the session, it'll just slowly populate. So that one completed fairly quickly after the first refresh. So you can just keep spamming that refresh button until you get all of the data you need. And then the last thing I want to show is an improvement we have on the log section, where if you go to any log now, and you just want to have AI quickly explain a log. This is a bad example. This is something that's really simple, so I'm just going to explain this. You can just have AI just explain something or tell you how to fix a log. So a good example of something that's like a little bit longer. I pulled this one up from production, and I really don't want to read all of this. So I'm just going to say, how do I fix this? And for the most part, it's actually pretty good at giving suggestions on how to fix something. So yeah, that is now live. This is also true for if you run into an error in your session, the error will also have this option to ask AI. Oh, one more thing that I totally forgot to show you. I don't know how long we had this not working, but the warning filter just wasn't working for a while. It's working again. So yep, just improvements and bug fixes throughout the web app. And that's all I wanted to share. Next up is Jeff.
That's amazing. Love seeing more native agent AI stuff in the apps. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to demo a couple different things. I'm going to start with the new doc site. We just went live probably about an hour or less ago with our new documentation site. So I'll just bring it up real quick, Agentuity Dev, and you can see our new fancy doc site that we just rolled out. So not only does it kind of match some of the new branding that Matt showed on the new corporate website, but also we've built a bunch of new guides and corrected a bunch of mistakes in the docs. And there's a bunch more that will expand over the next few days, but that we have kind of pending content for. But you should be able to get a lot better information now, a lot more overview of what's going on behind the scenes, information about templates that we support. We've started writing some more long form guides. So like we get a lot of times questions like, what is an agent? Isn't it just a chatbot? So we wrote some long form content around that. We talk a little bit about how we think about agent native cloud, which is really cool. We talk about how agents communicate, some of the stuff we talk about internally with transports and IO, and we've got a bunch of information about how you can communicate, two agents communicate between each other and different concepts. We have a really cool streaming guide here. It talks a little bit about how you do streaming. You give some different examples. The other thing I wanted to point out as a developer, one of the things that really absolutely drives me nuts about documentation sites is they typically have no memory at all. So when you click, especially when they're multi-language or they're showing examples in different languages, it just drives me nuts. So here in our documentation, if I click Python and clearly that becomes the language I want to use, if I reload the page, it'll remember.
Hey, Jeff, you're not sharing.
Oh my gosh, that whole thing I wasn't sharing.
That's fine. It was a good overview, but now that now maybe you want to show this part.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry about that. I was going through and showing a bunch of different pages. So sorry about that. So I'll start over real quick. Sorry about that. The new website on brand. I won't go through all of what I just said, but we just have these different sections. different long form content, how to be an engineer, an agent, how to build communication, all that stuff. What I was getting ready to show was you have these examples here. So like if you a TypeScript developer or if you're a Python developer, it will remember your settings across all of our documentation. So anywhere you go. So for example, I selected Python. So now if I go over here and look at API key, let me find one that maybe has, SDKs. Let's go over to Python. It'll remember, oh, I don't have one there. Let me find one that has some good examples. This one I think has a bunch of examples in it. It'll remember that you're on Python across the entire documentation session. The other nice little thing is, and thank you, Matt, for making this look really nice, but light mode and dark mode. But what's really nice is if you go to, let me say something that has pictures. So we built out the console. So this is kind of the front end app. We built out a bunch of docs on how the front end app works. And, a lot of it has screenshots, obviously, on how you create agents, how you use vector store, et cetera. But we also made little small things. So we made all the screenshots are also responsive on the fly. So if I look at this vector database here, and I go back to, that's really nice. Just some small little things that, make a difference, I think. So give us feedback on this. We've got a bunch more longer form content, programming guides around like more complicated topics that we have. How do you do certain things? How do you, do a bunch of different things in the product that's not really well documented at all right now. We're going to be rolling a lot more of that out. This is all open source as well. So you can go to the very bottom of any page and sort of see here. If you see an error or see something needs to be completed, you can just click this edit on GitHub button and it'll create a PR. So you can help us out. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show, we released this past week an email, the email transport capability. So I'm going to demo that real quick. I'm going to kind of go through a quick end-to-end demo of that. I'm going to do an Agentuity new or create their alias. I'm going to basically create just a sample. I'm going to do bun and OpenAI, and let's just do test email for a second. And then I'm going to let all the defaults go for a second. Okay, so that's going to create me a blank bun project with OpenAI. So let me go into this real quick and let's just vibe code together. How about that? Cursor. Oh my gosh, my thing's in the way. I can't see it. Sorry. All right, cursor. All right, let's open up a little cursor here. Let's just do a little bit of vibe coding. I'll make it bigger. Don't worry, Matt. Give me just 2 seconds. Let me get into my setup here and we'll just make, this is just the default template. I'm just going to basically show off a couple things. Okay, the default template. Thank you, Matt, for making this so much better. This is just, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hook, I want my agent to be able to receive email and then be able to process the email and respond, have the LLM do some task. In this case, it's going to be a simple task, but then reply to the user that sent the email. So there's a lot of different use cases for this, obviously. So what we're going to do is now there's a new interface. You can just get the email. I can just sort of say await request email. And I can get the email, email, and I can get the email, and that email object is going to have a bunch of different things pre-parsed for you. It's going to have text, subject, all the headers. You can get the HTML bodies. You can get a bunch of different things. So you don't have to worry about anything. So it's pretty amazing. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to take the text of the email and I'm going to feed it right into the LLM. This might be a bad idea in a production. Maybe you want to validate it or something like that, but this is a demo, so that's fine. So I'm going to take this text and I'm just going to, instead of sending this, I'm just going to send the text and let that clean up for a second. I'm going to send the text of the email. But what we'll do is I'm going to use the logger just to print out the email so you can actually see the email itself. So let's just do something like this. And I'll just do, I'll just do I'll just await the request body. So we'll just do the text of the body coming in. So this object gave me an actual structured object that's the email, but the text still is the text. So we can see what the body looks like here. So this is the email body. And then we'll send that to the LLM. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to, instead of doing this reply back, because I want to reply to the email itself, not to the caller. So what I'm going to do here in this case is I'm going to await the email and I'm going to say send reply. In this case, it takes a request and a context and then an email. And then, of course, the email body, you can have your text, your attachments. If you want to send an attachment back, an HTML version of the email, and you can optionally modify the subject if you don't want it to say reply or whatever. So I'm just going to send the text back, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the text of whatever the agent gave us back, and then just say something went wrong. Okay, and then that's it. And then in here, I don't really need to respond. I'm just going to say okay for now. So we'll see if that works, and then I'll just add another little logger. Should we get here? Context logger. My gosh, sometimes the autocomplete really is awful. Okay, so we can just sort of see the email sent. So that's my agent. Now I'm going to deploy this, and then I'm going to show you how to hook the email up to your agent. Okay, so over here, let's deploy. Now this is going to fail, and I'm going to show you another thing that we worked on this week to improve this, but this is going to fail. So just bear with me just 2 seconds. So I'm going to deploy, and this will just take a second to deploy. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to go over to the project screen, and we're going to configure the email here. So if I click on this link here, and let's just go over to our project for that agent I just deployed. We're going to go to the agent. There's only one agent, the default agent. And you can sort of see, because I set it up, it gave me a webhook, but that's it. So now there's this new email button. We also have SMS. I'm not going to demo that today. We're going to maybe demo that the following time. So I'm going to just click email. And so when I add this email attachment or association, this transport to the agent, he's going to get a unique email address. So there's the email address right there. I'm going to click to copy it. I'm going to click save. And now I have an email, and you can kind of go back into it and get the email address. So now I've got a webhook and an email. So the agent is kind of multi-transport. In a real life scenario, you'd probably want to check the trigger. Like, was it triggered via SMS? Was it triggered via email? Was it triggered via webhook, et cetera? In this case, it's just a demo, so I'm not going to worry about that. So no sessions yet. Let's go send an email to this. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to say, hey there. And this is going to fail, just to go ahead and warn you, test. And I'm just going to send it here, and then we'll go back over here, and then go to our sessions, and then we'll give it a second here to go through the email ethers here. It takes a second to go through Gmail and all that. I love the little new animation here. So while this is going, okay, so you can sort of see it here. This will show off some of the other stuff that we improved this week. So in this case, because the email, the out-of-the-box agent template has a relatively small memory reservation. So what it's asking for memory, it's pretty relatively small. But if you have a bunch more libraries, you're doing a lot more complicated stuff like email parsing as an example, you might need to give a little bit more headroom. So this is going to fail. And you're going to see the failure here now, and it's going to be a much better, demo of like a failure. Now, in the future, we want to make this a little smarter and potentially auto detect that it's a failure and potentially allow you to repair it in the console. But for now, it'll at least give you a example saying, hey, you requested 250 megs, which is the default template, and your agent needs about 263 megs. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you two more things on this part of this demo. So I'm going to show you how to improve that. So if you go into Agentuity YAML file and you go down to deployment, you can sort of see the reservations here. So I've asked for 250 meg. I'm going to bump that up. I'm going to bump that up to 300, just give it some space. And then I'm going to bump this down to 2. Let's see. I'm going to bump this down to, let's see if I can even get this to work. It may still be. So I'm going to bump this down to too small. And then let's try to deploy again. So if I now deploy, let's see what happens. Okay. So it's going to detect that it was too small, and it's going to say you need more space on the client side because it knows how big your bundle is. It knows how big you needed. So I told it to go ahead and adjust that for me, and so it's going to adjust it to the next biggest size it needs. And so that's kind of one thing. So some of that type of intelligence we can kind of do in the client. So we added that in the CLI this week. So you don't have to like deploy it, find out it's too small, and then come back. Now something like memory, we can't really do that on the CLI side. We don't really know how big the memory is going to be necessarily. We know disk, but we don't know memory and CPU. So, so I'm gonna, and so that's a new deployment. So we'll just go over here and we'll just validate that deployment. Okay, so there's my new deployment right there. So let me just go back over here because I can't remember the email address. I'm just going to copy it again. I'm just going to copy it here, and let's just go run it again. So now hopefully this one works. So let's just put that in, and we'll just say hey there. And because Robin's with me, we always have to do some sort of emoji internally. So let's just do that emoji there. And if we come back over here, and let's just make sure we go to our sessions here, give it a second to go through the ether. All right, ding, 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 ding. The suspense is, I know, killing everybody. And we can probably see Kevin's new thing. Oh, no, I picked the wrong one. You can see Kevin's new thing there. That's kind of cool. First time seeing that, Kev. Thank you. And hey, there it is. So we'll go here in a second and get rid of that. And we can see it hit the gateway. We can see all our data about the gateway, and it charged some money. We can see it did a reply. Let's go look at our logs, and let's go look at here. Whoa, so here, that's kind of cool. So what's cool here is the body of your agent. What he receives is the RFC 822 email body. So it's like the whole mind body of what you receive. Now, obviously, this is got a bunch of headers and stuff that comes from Gmail or wherever your email client is, but you can sort of see if it has attachments, or you can sort of see my email body. That might be sort of useful depending on what you're trying to do as well. And then we can sort of see our 2 logs. And then let's go check our email. And let's go hit Gmail, and let's see if the reply happened. And we haven't received the reply, but that's probably just because it's slow and who the heck knows. So we're going to give that a second. And that's pretty much my, I'm not sure why it didn't reply. It's probably just going through the internet gateways and spam bots and everything else, but I won't make us wait for that. I assure you it works. And that is email, and that is my demo for the week. And I think that kind of is going to wrap us up for week 17. And we appreciate it, everybody. If you're at AI Engineer World Fair next week in San Francisco, please stop by the booth and say, hey, hang out with us. If you're not in the community and would like to get started with Agentuity, please join our Discord community. You can't miss it now. It's literally, Matt put it in every part of our website and documentation and everything else. So please join us there and hang out with us and tell us a little bit about what you're building or what you want to build. And we appreciate you, and thanks very much. And we probably won't see you next Friday because we're going to be all traveling probably and tired and sitting at booths all week, but we'll definitely be back the following week. Thank you much, and we'll talk soon.